What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
Guys, today we are going to give you a technical breakdown of the fantastic UFC Saudi Arabia main event that is coming up this weekend. Israel Adesanya, the champion, is back, looking to break his two-fight skid against a guy who's on a three-fight win streak, Nassourdine Imavov. So we're going to break this down, talk about what each guy needs to do for victory, and then at the end of the video, make sure you stick around because we're going to give our official predictions. So Nick, let's get into the technical aspect of this fight. And this is a really good one. Imavov, as I said, on a three-fight win streak, is coming in with a lot of steam behind him. You know, Jared Cannonier, he's beaten some really good fighters in the last couple of years, and he's looked like he's coming along quite well as a prospect who could end up challenging for a belt sometime in the near future. Obviously, we know what we're going to get out of Israel Adesanya, one of the best middleweights, if not the best middleweight of all time. This, to me, is going to be a striker's delight, much like the other fight that we broke down, Share a Bullet versus MVP. But this one, I think, is going to be very different. For one, it's 5 rounds, but both of these guys are just so buttoned up.
Oh, yeah, this is the exact fight that Israel Adesanya needed next. You know, the two-fight skid is tough, but you have to remember where Israel Adesanya is coming from. He was the most dominant middleweight, the most dominant champion in the UFC for a while, just running the middleweight division, fighting more frequently than anybody, contenders and champions alike. And every one of those fights, people don't understand this. When you're in any other sport, you have a regular season, you have the playoffs, and then if you're lucky enough, you get the big title, the championship
Super Bowl,
fight,
something like
the
that.
Super Bowl, right. Israel Adesanya only played in Super Bowls for years. He only fought the hardest person possible on the roster at any given time, beat so many of them that he went back and beat them again. You know, this is who we're talking about. And it's very interesting to see him on a fight night, which we're not paying for, right? But it is still 5 rounds. He's still one of the most important fighters on the entire roster. And this is a massive fight for Imavov because now you're getting to fight in that rare air. You get a champion in the cage with you. So when you get down to the technical aspect of things, we're dealing with a champion versus a contender, a guy who's never been to the top of the mountain before. And I think that all the little finite details that are going to go into the game plans are going to make the biggest difference. For me, Imavov really does need to get in there, get inside the mid-range, get close, outside of kicking range, and land his hands. He needs to put pressure on Izzy because Izzy's not normally a pressure fighter. He's willing to stand in front of you and kind of style on you if you don't bring pressure, and he won't exactly move back. But if you bring pressure to Izzy, it does throw a wrinkle into his game plan, and he has to adjust for it. He's very good at moving back and striking and still landing his stuff, and sees a lot of success that way, but not near as much as when you're not moving towards him and you're not pressuring him. So Imavov needs to avoid kicking range. I don't even think he needs to be worrying about kicks of his own because Izzy's so good at defending them, pulling back, checking. You need to get inside. You need to get into boxing range with Izzy. And, you know, we've seen Izzy a few times get put up against the cage, and he believes in his head movement. He loves the rope-a-dope, the Muhammad Ali. He's very influenced by Muhammad Ali. So he loves to get in there and entertain the crowd with some of that. But that can be dangerous against a guy like Imavov. He knows he's got this former champion in there. He knows that a win against Adesanya likely puts him in the top 3, which puts him right in line for a title shot. So Imavov is really going to be looking to seize those moments. And I think if he buttoned his game plan up where forget all about the kick range, forget all about trying to land your own kicks, we need to get inside and box with Adesanya, pressure him to the cage, hopefully try to drag him down to the floor 1 or 2 times. But that's easier said than done because Izzy's shown such good takedown defense over the years, and it's only gotten better. But similar to the Share a Bullet fight when we were breaking it down with MVP, I think that Imavov would really benefit him if he took Israel Adesanya over to the cage and just tried to beat him up over there, drain his battery a little bit, make him carry his weight, make him feel his weight, maybe push in with some strikes to the body, strikes to the head, just be disruptive and eat up some minutes on the clock. Because I don't know if this is his first or second 5-round fight. I think it's his second 5-round fight in the UFC, Imavov that is. Izzy's only fought 5-round fights for as long as he can remember. So he's more conditioned to it, and I have a feeling Izzy's going to want to drag him into the championship rounds so he can experience that and maybe see a little bit of a dip in the gas tank of Imavov and start to expose him, look for a late finish. But yeah, I think this is one of those things where mindset and game plan is going to come in very, very importantly. And Izzy's going to go out there and do what he does best. And unless Imavov goes out there and makes him change his game plan and forces his game plan and maybe decides to take over and control the dance, it's going to be a tough night for Imavov. But if he goes out there and does that, then I think he's going to have a lot of success.
Yeah, and I mean, Izzy, you talked about this being a 5-round fight, and I do think that is kind of an X factor in this one. Imavov doesn't have nearly the 5-round experience that Adesanya does.
Right.
Izzy, for the last 6-7 years, has lived at 5 rounds. As you said, he was the champion, and he was the most active champion on the UFC's roster during his tenure. And then he took some time off after the Sean Strickland fight and came back and fought DDP. But right now, he's having longer layoffs than he's ever had. Right. But point being, 5 rounds is where Adesanya likes to be, which brings me to my first point that I think is very important for Izzy. Patience is key here.
Yes.
Imavov likes to push the pressure. He likes to bring the dance to you. And even though Imavov is very light on his feet and he's cerebral like Izzy in a lot of ways, he does bring the fight forward a little bit more than Izzy does.
Yeah.
And so if Izzy can be careful and he can be calculated, he can start to counter-strike and tag Imavov against the cage and be elusive like he is. When I say against the cage, I mean him with his back against the cage.
Right.
He's one of the best in the organization, best in the history, actually, at fighting with his back to the cage, moving laterally and eluding bad situations, and then also making people pay. Another thing that Izzy does really well against the cage is land good strikes of his own.
For sure.
You know, Alex Pereira is the hottest commodity in the UFC right now, but it wasn't that long ago that Izzy landed a bomb. And where did that come from? With his back against the cage.
Right.
Alex was teeing off. Izzy is one of the best counter strikers that we've ever seen. He's very good at eluding. As you said, Muhammad Ali is an influence of his. It should be an influence of anybody,
right?
Especially those who like to call themselves strikers, and that's their game. But if he can get Imavov to kind of walk into his dance a little bit, keep himself safe in the first couple rounds, I only think Izzy needs to grab one of the first 3 rounds, because I think that he's going to be able to really push the pace and really take over the fight come rounds 4 and 5. He's got excellent cardio, and he's got excellent skill all the way through a 25-minute fight. Imavov needs to work his hands, as you said, but he also needs to work his grappling offensives, but not necessarily in the sense that he needs to take this fight to the ground and keep it there.
Right.
He needs to show some takedowns. He needs to maybe get him on the canvas a time or two and then use that. Izzy's very good at scrambling back up. Minus the Jan Blachowicz fight, we've always seen Izzy be able to get back to his feet, and he's been a very difficult person to take down. But in those moments of scramble where you're fighting to get back to your feet, you do exhaust yourself a little bit, and you do leave yourself open to shots. And Imavov is really good at landing some shots in the breaks, in the separations, in those moments of scramble. So that's got to be something that Nassourdine Imavov really puts focus on. Fake the wrestling, even get a few takedowns if you can get them, but work that in. Don't just think of it as I got to strike some, I got to wrestle some. No, he needs to, very much as we talked about with Shara Bullet, make that seamless. Start with some strikes, fake a takedown, and then go back to the striking again. Because if he allows Izzy to hang out in kickboxing range and fight the fight at the pace that Izzy wants it, because that's the other thing that could really be a crippling detriment to Nassourdine Imavov if he allows it to happen. If you let Israel Adesanya fight the fight that he wants at the pace that he wants, he beats you every time. You have to make him fight at a higher pace than he wants to fight. Izzy's perfect. Izzy's one of the fastest strikers. He's one of the most accurate strikers. He's long and lanky for the division. He's got great kicks. He attacks everything from the body to the lower calf kick. So if you allow him to just sit in his range that he's comfortable with, slip and counter you, he will win a 5-round decision all night long.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, controlling the pacing of the fight might be the most important thing for Nassourdine Imavov.
For sure. Yeah, and one other thing I want to talk about that I think is the most important tool that Israel Adesanya brings to the cage, it's none of his strikes. It's actually his feints. I think Israel Adesanya doesn't get enough credit for being the guy that innovated modern MMA's feinting game. Everybody feinted, in the UFC from the very beginning, right? You feint to get inside, but they've evolved just like every other aspect of the game. And now you're seeing things like little hip flares, which of course you've seen those in Muay Thai and you've seen them in kickboxing, but he came from that world and he brought them over to MMA. And now you see dudes like Sugar Sean showing all sorts of really interesting feints, and they work. But I think Izzy needs to get a little credit for that. His feint game is so dangerous, and it has everybody second guessing where their defense is. If their guard's high when it needs to be high, if it's low, where am I supposed to be blocking? Am I square with my opponent or am I bladed? And all of these little things are going to have to be in Imavov's mind because of the feint game that Israel Adesanya brings. He's so good at freezing his opponent, and that's truly what the feint is used for. MMA and combat sports it's all about the millisecond. Everything happens in a split second. And what you have to do is exploit a weakness or an opening in your opponent while it's open. And most of the time it's not open for very long. The feint freezes them in that position for a quick moment. Right before they go to defend something else or see where you've gone, they're frozen. So Israel Adesanya is really good at mixing the feints up, and he'll show you the hip, and then he'll throw the other side hook. He's very creative with how he likes to set up his attacks off of his feints. So I think the feints from Israel Adesanya are actually the most important thing. If he's able to have success with them like he always does, it's going to be a good night for him. And if Imavov's able to shut him down and maybe not bite on all of them or make him pay for it when he does try to get him to buy some of these feints, I think that could really be the big key factor for both of these guys going into this fight.
Yeah, and now it's prediction time.
Oh yeah, my favorite.
And guys, before we give you our official predictions, one thing we noticed that's kind of alarming is that most of you that watch these videos are actually not subscribed to the channel.
What's up with that?
And it really does help us a lot. We're on a mission to get to 10,000 subscribers, and your subscription to this channel means the world to us. It helps us to create the best content we can for you all, and we look forward to making more videos in the future. So if you find value out of our videos and you like combat sports talk, just hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Had I seen Izzy last against Sean Strickland, I would have predicted Nassourdine Imavov to win this fight. And I know that sounds a little bit weird because he came back and lost again against DDP.
Right.
But he looked very good in that fight up until the point that, he got, caught and submitted by Dricus.
Yeah.
But the Sean Strickland fight, he looked very much like he was second guessing himself.
Right.
He looked a half a step behind Sean the whole fight. And I would say probably that is going to be an indicator that maybe Israel Adesanya's best days are behind him. And while that may be the case, we're probably never going to see the Izzy of old that we saw as the champion. I saw enough out of the Dricus fight to say that Izzy's still got it.
Oh, yeah.
Another X factor here, and I should have brought this up earlier in my breakdown, he's been training with Robert Whitaker for this fight.
I love that.
So the two guys have become friends now. And you love when you see old foes kind of get together and bury the hatchet. And the reality of the matter is Robert Whitaker doesn't fight like Nassourdine Imavov. But when you talk about your main sparring partner being, Carlos Ulberg and Dan Hooker, which is who, and Volk. I mean, Volk can get in there with anybody, but that doesn't really pertain here.
Right.
But, the fact that he's got Bobby Knuckles in the training room with him for these sparring sessions, I think actually could be the difference maker here. I like the former champion in this one. I like him by decision, but a clear decision, 49-46. He's going to win 4 of the 5 rounds. Israel Adesanya is going to come back and show us that, maybe he won't be the champion again one day, but the old dog's still got a little bit of fight left in him. He's got that veteran 5-round experience. I think that's a big difference maker too. Unanimous decision win for the former champ.
I love it. Yeah. And Israel Adesanya is not a guy that you should bet against, right?
No.
I get that he's on a 2-fight losing skid and he's fighting a guy on a winning streak. But like I said, he was fighting in only the Super Bowls of MMA for years. And don't forget, Alex Pereira, like you said, is the hottest commodity, seems like Mr. Invincible these days. Well, he put him out. The judges weren't needed that night. Israel Adesanya still is that guy. He still has that power. And I think the doubt that came from the community towards Izzy is lighting a fire in him. There's almost nothing a champion can do once he's reached the top of the mountain and then been dethroned to get back up there. You need a little fire lit under you. And the fans calling him a has-been, saying he never really was.
Oh, you're on a fight night now. You're not on a numbered UFC pay-per-view. Yeah.
Right. I'm sure that is getting to him a little bit. I mean, he's got ice running through his veins. He knows how to deal with that stuff. But I think that is part of the reason he's still getting in there, still active. And I think he wants to be a top contender. I think on any given night, he could be the world champion again. I don't know if he's going to ever get the belt, but I could see him absolutely being a thorn in the side for a world title holder or any of the top contenders. And this fight, to me, the prediction, I went back and forth on it because I do like to give praise to the up and coming, the newer guys, the fresher faces. And anytime there's somebody new, you have to maybe wonder if there's a spot for them at the top of the history books, or if they're going to emerge as this amazing next Israel Adesanya. Imavov is a great fighter, but for me, he just doesn't have that quality. I don't think he's quite at that level. I don't think he's quite ready to be the world champion. I've seen Israel Adesanya beat the best fighters on any given night. I've not seen Imavov beat the same fighters, and I don't know if we ever will. But Israel Adesanya goes out there every time, and he puts on a show. He knows how to get his hand raised. He knows how to control the fight. He knows how to keep himself at bay. And I just feel like as long as he doesn't get gun shy like he did with Sean Strickland, if he goes out there and throws, he's actually got a little bit of a chin. I mean, I know we've seen Izzy get finished, but he does take shots. He does know how to absorb some shots, and he makes sure that he's standing in range to get his back on you as soon as you land on him. So I think Israel Adesanya is going to show us even more exciting new things that maybe we haven't seen before, but I think he has a lot of control in this fight. I think Imavov, if he was a little bit better at getting fights to the ground, would have a better chance at stealing a few rounds. But yeah, I'm kind of rocking with you. I'm going to go 3-2. Israel Adesanya gets his hand raised in Saudi Arabia over Imavov.
Yeah, great point. And just one quick thing when you talk about Izzy's chin, because I think you brought that up, and I think that's a great thing to touch on.
Yeah.
Alex Pereira is sleeping people right now.
205ers, not people, 205ers.
205ers are getting just absolutely starched. He finished in Izzy by standing finish.
Right.
You know, it was the referee jumped in there, but Izzy did not actually touch the canvas.
Right.
Izzy can eat some shots. Izzy is actually the one that put Alex Pereira completely out cold.
Right.
So you have to factor that in. And when you have 5 rounds, and Izzy's a very hard guy to finish, he made a mistake against Dricus and he paid for it. That's life. You know,
Right.
Dricus du Plessis is the champion. I don't think Imavov is at that level, but I just wanted to bring that up before we wrap because I think the chin could be an X factor.
Oh, I think it's a major factor.